Alright guys, welcome to today's session. This will be the 5th class for this semester. Like I said, philosophy is a trajectory that looks sequential. So if you've not watched the earlier videos, it is important that you watch those videos so that you can get what we are saying at this point and be able to understand what we really want to discuss. Today's class is one class I always wish and I desire that it is a physical class. But what do we have to do since we have the mandate to take the classes online? We just have to discuss it because it is with discussions that will warrant interaction between the tutor and the students to be able to have a well and a robust brainstorming section. But then by and large, I'll try as much as possible to give you various parameters to the discussion and hear your view. But as usual, you are always entitled to your opinions, and you can always hear your opinion on the group WhatsApp page. If you have any question, you could always contact me, like I said, on 07039587205. Once again, I welcome you to the class. We will be discussing about ethical dilemma today, ethical dilemma, and ethical theories and moral dilemma. Ethical theories and moral dilemma. We could always call them ethical dilemma because morality cannot be totally separated with ethics. So I'll begin by telling you some of the ethical theories, then move to the dilemmas that we can face. You know, in the previous class I was trying to tell you some of the perennial problems in philosophy, where I was able to give you an insight into some of the problems we have in ethics. You know, I discussed what ethics is, what it means, and the scope of ethics earlier on, so I will not be going into that again. So we'll be going to some of the ethical theories. But then, before we go into these ethical theories, sorry, I've not introduced myself. My name is Oluwatobi David Eson. Before we go to all these ethical theories, I would love to paint a picture for you quickly. For instance, let's say you are a very devoted Christian or Muslim, so to speak, and very devoted, very devoted, and you believe in this idea of repentance, reconciliation, forgiveness, and restitution, and you believe that nobody deserves to die for any offense once they are able to plead guilty and repent. And you find yourself in a position that you happen to be the judge of a particular case. You are a lawyer now. You happen to be the judge of a particular case in a court of law, or you happen to be the governor of a state, and you are to sanction a case between two persons, of which one party already pleaded guilty for the offense. Maybe we have two people that are fighting, or maybe we have a terrorist who now got or is repented and pleaded guilty for all the past sins he or she has committed, and you are in the court of law, and based on all the offenses and the crime, according to the constitution of the land, that person should be sentenced to death by killing. In that kind of situation, your original belief would not want to allow you to sentence such person to death, but according to constitution, you will need to sanction and sign to the killing of that particular person. That is what we call the private and public morality. There is always a distinction between the private and public morality, in the sense that what your moral stand is publicly, should it also be the case? What your moral stand is privately, should it always also be the case publicly? Should you translate your private morality to public morality? We have instances whereby some people are made to do some things in public that naturally they would never subscribe to it privately. Some people will never subscribe to killing of fellow men privately, irrespective of the offense, because they believe in the idea of forgiveness and repentance, most especially when those persons have pleaded guilty and show a form of repentance act to not want to go ahead with what they used to be in the past. So the difference, you know, private morality is what you do privately, your stand, your moral stand, your belief privately. In that situation, some believe that your private morality should also be the same with what you exhibit publicly. But then in a situation where you find yourself in conflicting situation, that what you believe, what you uphold privately, you have to go against it publicly. How do you navigate that? Now let me throw another scenario to you. You have your brother. Today we'll be discussing so many scenarios, so many cases. You have your brother who, let's say, is dependent on you, and you have been the one feeding him, is married, but you have been the breadwinner of even his own family, and he's applying for a job, and you happen to be the one who is to decide or give the final verdict on who is employed, and he applied in your organization or in your establishment, and by the time you vary the test result or the result of the score, you got to discover that he was not the one that performed the best. He didn't score the highest mark, but he scored something that could also guarantee him for the job. But you are to pick the person that scored the best. Now you are torn between this situation. If you fail to pick him, it will continue to depend on you, and you know that is in dire need of that particular job. You know that is in dire need of that particular job, and you know that he is going to perform if given that job. You are now thrown in a situation between helping him and going by the moral law of picking the person that scored the highest mark in the test. In that situation, what do you do? Also, let me paint another situation. For instance, as a government official, you are a policeman. You got to discover that someone is plotting a terrorist attack on the public, but then you tried as much as possible to bring the person before the law, but the person was so smart. You know, in cases of law, it is not really about the who is the offender, but who can prove their case more logically. The person could prove to the judge beyond logical doubt that he is guiltless, and the judge freed the person. But you have the belief and the intuition that this person is actually a dangerous person to the society, and one way or the other, you go and ambush the person and you kill the person because you know that this person is really plotting. I don't know if you've watched I've watched one Korean season film where a man who happens to be a cook is a serial killer, and all through the period of investigation it was difficult to affirm, to ascertain or bring reasonable doubt that this man is a serial killer before the law. But then how do you balance it, going against the law to bring down people who are evil in the society? Are these things right? So public and private morality, how do we distinguish it? So by and large, while you are ruminating on that, I'll quickly go into what we call the ethical theories. Like I said, ethical theories are divided into two. We have the consequentialist ethical theory. The consequentialist ethical theory. Like I said in the previous class, I said the consequentialist ethical theories are theories that consider the consequences of an action, they consider the outcome. And one of the consequentialist ethical theories is utilitarianism. I told you utilitarianism is the belief that we maximize happiness for the greatest number of people, when you maximize happiness for the greatest number of people. That is what utilitarianism is all about. So for instance, if greater number of people says that a just man should be killed, they will tell you that that is what? Morally right, and it is ethically right. And if greater number of people says an evil man should not be killed, should be let alone, because it maximizes happiness for the greater number of people, then by default it is what? Morally right. And we also have another one that we call egoism. Egoism. Egoism is the belief that man is what? Generally, man is generally self-centered. But egoism is further divided into two. We have the psychological egoism and we have the philosophical egoism. In treating the psychological and philosophical egoism, I will be discussing what I will call the distinction between descriptive ethics and prescriptive ethics. Ethics could be prescriptive, ethics could be descriptive. When you say descriptive, it is trying to describe, try to tell us a situation or a state, the status quo of a particular moral action or the status quo of a particular moral agent. So as I am as an individual, I am what? A moral agent. So at the point of descriptive ethics, is trying to tell me that I, under egoism now, for instance, under egoism, is trying to tell me that whatever action I carry out, or whatever moral action I embark on, the first thing by nature is that I am self-centered. I am considering myself first. You know, you are describing my action. So when you see me, even when I see a case of a car crash, and I tried as much as possible to run there to rescue or call the rescue agency and intimate them about the situation of things, it is believed that I still have one way or the other a self-interest in doing that. So that you are describing. But in prescriptive, when you are prescribing, you are trying to tell me how I should behave. So you are not describing that moral action again. You are telling me that should in case I find myself in this particular situation, this is how I ought to behave. You are prescribing for me. So now, under egoism, we have the psychological egoism, which says that man is naturally self-centered. By nature, we are self-centered. But we have what we call the philosophical egoism. The philosophical egoism is of the opinion that man ought to be self-centered. You are prescribing what ought to be. So what you mean now is that you are trying to inform me that, for instance, if I see a car crash or an accident on the road, the first thing I have to think about is, when I call the rescue agent, how does this calling benefit me? If it doesn't benefit me, then it is not morally right. I don't know if you get the point. If it doesn't benefit me, then it is not morally right. But if it benefits me, then it is morally right. So it's trying to prescribe how I should behave at a given period of time. That is under what we call the consequentialist ethical theory. Then we have what we call the non-consequentialist ethical theory. You know, the non-consequentialist ethical theory could also be called the deontological ethical theory. Like I said in the previous class, when we discuss the deontological ethical theory, we are trying to talk about following the rules and regulations. And one of the deontological ethical theories is the Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. Like I said earlier in the previous class, I said Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative is all about following the rule, duty for duty's sake. Doing what you ought to do, regardless of who is doing what is wrong. That is Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative. So as a medical practitioner, as a doctor, if you are to treat a patient, you know the Hippocratic Oath says that you should save life first. So you shouldn't even consider the amount they are going to pay you as a medical doctor before you act to save life. It is after you've saved life that you can now start considering your pay. I don't know if you are getting the point. You follow the rule strictly. It's called the Kantian categorical imperative. It's called the duty for duty sake. So you have to note that very well. Kantian categorical imperative, duty for duty sake. And some will also call it the Kantian golden rule. Do unto others what you want others to what? Do unto you. The Kantian or the ethical golden rule. Then we have what we call the social contract ethics. The social contract ethics. When we discuss the social contract ethics, you know, let me explain what social contract really means now. Social contract is like coming together of some group of people, some individual, to form a law that will govern them within a society. Coming together of some group of people to form a law that will govern them within a society. So you don't really need to dwell on what we call the social contract theory and all those theory, but it's like coming together to form a law. A theory of social contract is group of people coming together to form a law that will govern them. So for instance, Nigeria is let's say Nigeria is a contract now. You know, in the first page of our constitution, we say, we the people of Nigeria, we the people of Nigeria agree by this word, by this constitution. So it's like a contract. So the contract theory is like whatever is morally right is within the contract we signed. So if part of the things within our contract seems to be wrong, it is right because we signed a contract that what? It is right. So if for instance in Nigeria, part of the Nigerian constitution is that you can kill your fellow men when they slap you, it becomes morally right. Why? Because that is the contract we signed. Are you getting it now? So it depends on the contract. What makes your action morally right or wrong is what? The social contract that you are into that binds you. So it's following the rules to the letter. That is under what? Non-consequentialist. I've discussed social contract. I've discussed the Kantian ethical, Kantian categorical imperative. Then let me try and, in the previous class, I think we discussed what we call virtue ethics. Under the philosophical theory, we discussed virtue ethics. Now, virtue ethics is an ethical principle that deals with the moral agent. Are you getting my point? Virtue ethics deals with what? The moral agent, and not really about the moral action or the consequences of an action. So for instance, in Nigeria, or let me say for instance the Yoruba people of Nigeria, believe that Awolowo is a very good man. Is a very good man, and they believe that he is a role model in terms of the Yoruba political ideology or the Yoruba social ideology. So let's say for instance that Obafemi Awolowo is still alive, and Obafemi Awolowo decide, and we believe that he is a virtuous man, and he decide to kill hundreds or millions of people. We will believe that his killing is right because Awolowo is a good man. The moral agent justifies the action. Are you getting my point? The moral agent justifies the action. Why? Because we believe that that moral agent is a virtuous person. So even when he is doing what we can see that might be what is injurious to fellow human, we believe that he is doing it to bring good. He is doing it on a virtuous ground to be able to bring what is called good out of the situation. So we all know, or let me say a lot of people, I don't want to commit fallacy by saying we all know, it is believed by some people that Sani Abacha is a bad man in terms of the Nigeria political history. That Sani Abacha is a bad man. Now, if Sani Abacha were to be alive and he decides to save 1 million Nigeria from hunger, we will believe that that action is still bad because the moral agent is bad. Why? Because we believe that his intention, one way or the other, will still be evil, and it will not be a very good intention. So virtue ethics deals with what? The moral agent. I don't know if you get the point. So the proponent of virtue ethics is what? Aristotle. Aristotle is the proponent of virtue ethics. The proponent of utilitarianism is Jeremy Bertrand. Then the proponent of what other ethical theory have we discussed? Social contract does not really have a particular proponent, but we have so many social contract theory. We have John Locke, we have Jean Jacques Rousseau, we have Thomas Hobbes. They are social contractarian. Then the proponent of egoism, I think Thomas Hobbes. Egoism, is it Thomas Hobbes or Epicurus? Okay, Thomas Hobbes. Thomas Hobbes is the proponent of egoism. Then hedonism is Epicurus. Hedonism believes that whatever gives us pleasure is morally right. So, as a moral agent, hedonism falls under the consequentialist ethical theory because it considers the consequence. So, when you are about to act as a moral agent, if you believe that that thing will not give you pleasure, then you don't have to do it. But if it will give you pleasure, then you can go ahead and do it. So that's that for that. Then another one under the non-consequentialist theory is what we call the divine command. The divine command. This divine command is the same thing what we call religious authoritarianism. So what is good is based on what your religion has commanded or what your religion commanded. Are you getting it? So if your Holy Bible says that stealing is bad, then stealing is bad. If your Holy Bible says that killing is good, then killing is good. If your Quran says that killing is bad, then killing is bad. If your Quran says that killing is good, then killing is good. I don't know if you are getting the point. So it deals with what your religion is telling you. So those are some of what? The ethical theories. We have the divine command. We can also call it what we call the religious what? Authoritarianism. We also have what we call the feminist ethics. It is under deontology, that is non-consequentialist. The feminist ethics is an ethics that deals with the female gender. The female gender deals with a form of equality between the male and the female gender, and that when we act as moral agents, we must not discriminate or we must not act based on the gender, but we must act based on humanity. That's just the summary of the feminist ethics. It's a wide discussion, and I do not really want to go into feminism at all because it will raise too many doors. So, but it's just to treat everybody as equal individual and equal human being. So, we spent over 23 minutes or so thereabout. I don't want the videos to get too long. Now, very quickly, with those ethical theories, you can beef it up with your textbook. You can read your textbook. I told you can get the textbook at the university bookshop for philosophy and logic. And you should also make sure you attend the live classes on the University LMS platform between 5 to 7. But then let me go to what we call moral or ethical dilemma. Moral or ethical dilemma. Now, why do we call them moral dilemma or ethical dilemma? Like I said, in the case of the public and private morality, you know, it's a case of dilemma. At some point, what you hold privately, you cannot exhibit it publicly, and sometimes the public will make you want to act differently from what your belief is privately. That is what we call a dilemma situation. When you are thrown between two scenarios that you really do not know what or where or what to do at that particular time, or which side you should be. So we have so many ethical dilemma or moral dilemma in philosophy, and that's why we say these problems are problems that are perennial. We have so many moral dilemma in philosophy and instances. Although some will hold one particular side and some will hold a different side. But then after this class, I'll be giving an assignment. So let me say, first and foremost, we have various ethical dilemma, and we'll be picking them one after the other. The first ethical dilemma on my list is euthanasia. Euthanasia. Euthanasia is what? An ethical dilemma. Euthanasia is an ethical dilemma. We call it mercy killing. And why I really wish we have a physical class for this discussion is because I would be able to hear your view, as well as you will be able to hear my own view, and we'll be able to have a well-robust brainstorming section that would be beneficial to both of us. But then we could also still hear our views on WhatsApp platform, and let me hear your idea, let me hear your view. Euthanasia is what we call mercy killing. We have various types of euthanasia. We have what we call voluntary euthanasia, we have involuntary euthanasia. But it's still the case of mercy killing. So I'll be bringing a scenario to you now of euthanasia. We have a soldier at war. He's a military officer. He went to war to fight and defend his nation. And one way or the other, he got battered and injured. He got battered and injured. So his two arms were cut off and his two legs have been cut off. And this man, while in serious pain and looks like it is an hopeless situation, asked his colleague that, hey guy, my legs are cut off already, my hands are cut off. The possibility of me surviving this battle is slim, one. And secondly, even if I eventually survive this battle, I might be irrelevant to myself and even to my family. Kindly shoot me and kill me. As a friend, what will you do? As a friend, what will you do at that particular point? Kindly shoot me and kill me. What will you do? So you see, now, if you are that very religious person that believe that killing is bad, irrespective of the situation, that you believe that killing is bad, you will tell your friend that there is hope and you can't kill anybody, but he asked for it. So you are torn between a dilemma of standing by your religious belief that killing is bad and also killing that your friend who is in pain. In euthanasia, we don't call it murder. Euthanasia is not murder, it's mercy killing. If you can prove a case of euthanasia properly in the court of law, you will be discharged and acquitted of offense of murder. I don't know if you are getting my point. Of a truth, you have killed someone. But if it is discovered that it is an euthanasia situation, you will be let go. Nobody is going to charge you for killing anybody. Because euthanasia is like having mercy upon that person that is going through pain and killing the person, so that you relieve that person of pain. So I'll paint another scenario again. For instance, you have a mother, or you have a mother who has been suffering from breast cancer. You have a mother who has been suffering from breast cancer for the past 20 years. You've exhausted everything you need to do medically. You've spent financially, and the family is bankrupt already. And she doesn't seem as if she is going to recover. She doesn't seem as if she is going to recover. And she's still in pain. You can either tell the doctor to just remove the life support machine from your mother and let her die peacefully and stop going through this pain, or you can continue to put her in pain and go borrowing, go do anything, and at the situation things might not still work out well. So what will you do at this point? Now, quite alright. Why some people will believe that a miracle can still happen and you should not kill that woman. But what if a miracle never happens? What if after you borrowed and you've gone drained and everything, the woman still eventually die? Or what if it is the woman that even asks for euthanasia and says, see, doctor, I'm suffering too much. My family have tried all their best. They've sold everything they can. Please kindly kill me. Will you, as the first child of the family, allow the doctor to kill your mother? What do you see about this? Still on what? Euthanasia. So, still on euthanasia, I felt the need to bring another person on board so that we could have a robust discussion, but then definitely the person will be anonymous and the person will be off camera, but you can hear one or two contributions from this situation. So I'll be hearing his view on the issue of euthanasia. Like we said, euthanasia is not murder. Euthanasia is mercy killing, freeing a particular person from a pain. So from the example we gave earlier, I will be tagging the person Mr. A. So Mr. A, we are in a situation that we have an individual whose mother has breast cancer and she has been suffering from breast cancer for the past 20 years. They've tried all medical alternatives to this situation and it seems as if nothing is working at all. And the family is getting bankrupt already in treating the patient. Now they are bankrupt, and one of the sons just said, instead of my mother to continue to go in pain, why not I just call on the doctor to remove the life support machine, that's the oxygen that my mother is using. Why not just tell the doctor to remove the life support machine and let my mother just die peacefully instead of going through this pain? So what do you see about this? As in case of euthanasia, yeah, I'm asking now, what do you see about it? Now, this is the issue of euthanasia. We call them moral dilemma. We call them moral dilemma because going by religious belief, there are still issues, there are cases where we can have a miracle. Are you getting it? And the woman will survive. But what if we don't have the miracle? And another ethical principle says, the deontological ethical principle says we should go by the rule. So if the rule says that killing is bad, irrespective of the situation, what do you feel to this situation?
Well, it's in two ways.
Okay.
You have to seek the counsel of the victim, the patient in this situation. That should be first the priority. And if the person says is ready for that, if the person is ready for that, the patient, not just the family here, but the patient himself, it can be done. But in another case, there are situations where people, even doctors, are surprised at some situations that there are some, that even apart from medical spirituality, that eventually the person eventually survived a situation where the medically it seems impossible. So, but since those are rare situations, those are in rare cases, so I don't think there's anything bad in that.
Okay. Now, Mr. A is trying to inform us that there is nothing bad in euthanasia if and only if we have the consent of the patient. But then, what about cases of voluntary euthanasia where the patient is unconscious, where the patient has been unconscious and have been on life support machine for years? We have situations where people have been on life support machine for 20-25 years and they have been unconscious. Should we continue to waste resources on them, or should we just let them go?
Well, I believe since it's a long time and financially also, if the family is not able to bear it again, I just feel we should engage it in that kind of situation.
Okay. So Mr. A is telling us that on the medical ground, one way or the other, euthanasia can be plausible. But then we must also be wary that some things we call euthanasia are murder. You must not take license of euthanasia to commit murder, because we have a case in the US where a son, in an attempt to inherit his father's property, saw the father drowning in water and refused to save the father or rescue the father, and that son calls it euthanasia. But on a closer investigation, they discovered at the point when the son got to the bedroom where the father was drowning, the son had an opportunity to save the father, and the father would still have survived that situation if the son had gone ahead to save the father. In that kind of situation, the law court confiscated all the property of the father from the son and donated it to a charity organization. So we must also be wary of the situation of euthanasia and murder. Although euthanasia is mercy killing, but then we should not allow euthanasia to translate to murder. The second ethical dilemma I'll be discussing with Mr. A, because I'll be discussing theory with him, because this theory deals with medical issue, and Mr. A happened to be a medical student. I believe he would have more insight into it. The second dilemma is abortion. The second dilemma is the issue of what? Abortion. And I'll be giving you a case of Miss Tina, who happens to be a 200 level student in the university. She slept in her house, and one way or the other, she got raped in her house in the middle of the night. 4 weeks after, Mrs. Tina got to this, Miss Tina now, she is not married. Miss Tina, a 200 level student, got to discover that she is now pregnant to a man who she does not even know, or to even have an idea of his whereabouts. Miss Tina is conscious of the fact that if she goes ahead to give birth to that child, that the caring for that child might affect her academics, and she might need to drop out of school. Aside that, Miss Tina is also weary of the trauma that this might cause to her widowed mother, who is suffering from high blood pressure. Hence, Miss Tina is considering the case of abortion. At this situation, do we feel that abortion is justifiable? So let's ask Mr. A now. Do you feel abortion is justifiable in this situation?
Well, it might and it might not.
Okay.
For example, if you are saying it might, then you can, if because of the trauma that it will cause, you can decide to eliminate it. But on the other hand, this person, there are situations where people have gone through hardship and they eventually put through that trauma and that pain, and the child eventually becomes someone great. So if the person can still manage the trauma, a life is worth more than just your feeling, your pain, if it will be a shame or not. A life is worth more than that. So if you can still preserve a life, a person who could become a great person in the future, who could contribute positively to the world, a person who could be the next Bill Gates or the next inventor, I think it is worth more than your feelings. It is worth more than your emotions.
Okay, now Mr. A, there is this argument that a fetus is not yet a human being. A fetus is not yet a human being. So when you are born, you have not killed. Why some people will say that this fetus carries life in it, and when you are born, you have killed a human being. So what do you see to it? For those that challenge the argument that when you are born, it is morally right, and you have the right to remove what you feel you don't want from your body, because this fetus is not yet a human being. What do you see to this issue of fetus not being human?
Well, whether we like it or not, a fetus will eventually become a human being.
But it's not yet a human being. So have I killed someone by aborting?
It's just like saying you are killing a 10-year-old child because you expect him to be a doctor and he's not yet a doctor at the age of 10. That is, he carries even as the fetus, he carries every potential every human being carries. And even medically, we discover that by the second month of pregnancy, we see that all the organs are developed. There is life in the person. But even before that stage, it's just like someone who doesn't have, there is growth in life. It's just a part of the growth process in life. So you shouldn't use that as a means or as a justification for your action. Life is life, no matter what.
So we are torn between the situation where the medical practitioner believes that a fetus has life and should not be killed, and those who believe that a fetus does not have a fetus is not yet a human being, and so they have not killed any person. One way or the other, some might argue for egoism, for self-centeredness, while some might argue for religious authoritarianism that says divine command that you should not kill irrespective of the situation. So we are torn between that. The second case I will be bringing for the case of abortion is Mrs. Stella, who is 1 month pregnant, but one way or the other she fell sick and she used a drug, and after 3 months she read an article that informed her that the particular drug she used contained a chemical that deforms a growing baby now. So Mrs. Stella went to see her doctor, and her doctor carried out a check on her and discovered that that particular baby, that particular child will come out deformed, to confirm her fear. Now Mrs. Stella is torn between a situation of committing an abortion or letting the baby to live and giving birth to the baby in a deformed state. So in this situation, what should Mrs. Stella do? Should Mrs. Stella go ahead to give birth to a deformed child, or she should still just go ahead with the abortion? So looking at Mr. A, what do you think Mrs. Stella should do in this situation?
Well, it depends on the degree of the deformity, because medically there are some deformity that once it occurs, even the baby, the maximum the baby can live is 2 years, some might be 6 months. If that kind of situation, but I would still prefer that the woman gives birth to it rather than abortion, because it's more safe if it is the child is given birth to, and then there is with the consent of mother, the child is killed, than is aborted, than the child is aborted, which is unsafe for the mother herself. So I prefer that there's no abortion, but there might be euthanasia with the consent of the mother after that situation. So
now he's bringing in euthanasia into a case of even a fetus, that is what we call a non-live a human a baby yet to be given birth to now. But in a case where we have a scenario where we have a conflicting situation, you have to save either the child or the mother. Who should be saved?
Of course the mother. I will go for the mother. The
mother. So now it brings us back to the case of the first abortion. When the medical practitioner believe that the mother should be saved ahead of the child, now the argument for those that believe that a fetus is not yet a person now looks a bit justified. So one way or the other, I will be leaving you to ruminate on it. On the case of abortion, can it be justified in some instances, and can it be justified in several instances? The third ethical dilemma we'll be looking at is what we call the surrogacy. Surrogacy is another ethical dilemma that we treat. Now, what we call surrogacy is like, for instance, we have what we call a medically a situation where we call a weak fallopian tube, whereby a woman womb cannot be able to carry a baby. Are you getting my point? A womb is not okay to carry a baby, or maybe they've been trying several attempts to have baby, and they have several miscarriages along the line, and at one point or the other they contracted the task of carrying a baby to a separate mother. You know, the first baby that surrogacy was carried on was baby Luis. And if you read Cristiano Ronaldo, you know, some of his, I think, if not all, were through surrogate mother. That means the wife did not carry the pregnancy. A separate woman carried the pregnancy now. And it is an issue for a dilemma situation in morality when you have a woman carrying the baby for another person. While medically it is accepted, medically it is allowed, but let's look at the morality between a situation of Mrs. Shadrach. The case of Mrs. Shadrach, and happens to be that she has had several miscarriages over the years, and they discover that her womb is weak to carry what? A baby. So her neighbor, who happens to be a lawyer, suggested that she use a surrogate mother, and they called a separate woman by name Mrs. Bosse, who already had 4 children, and they had a contract that, okay, madam, you help us carry this baby. You know, surrogacy happens. Surrogacy, this is how surrogacy occurs. They collect the sperm from the man, then they collect the egg from the woman, they fertilize it, then they implant it into the womb of a separate woman. So that separate woman will carry the pregnancy and deliver the baby. Now, that was what was accepted by Mrs. Bosse to help them carry the baby. And you know, they will definitely pay. It's always a contract that deals with financial benefits. And they pay immediately. Mrs. Bosse had the pregnancy, they paid her half of the money. Mrs. Bosse is a poor woman, so she needed that money very well to be able to survive. And along the line, Mrs. Bosse's children had a car crash. And she lost the entire 4 children she had. She lost the entire 4 children. So when she gave birth to the child happens to be a twin, and the contract agreement stated that you are to help me carry 1 baby. Now, Mrs. Shadrach and her husband is trying to claim the 2 child now, and saying that this is our own egg, this is our ovary, we own the twin. But Mrs. Shadrach is saying, I lost my 4 kids already. We had an agreement for just 1, and I have 2. I will only give you 1 according to the agreement. In fact, I'm not ready to collect the balance again. You can take the balance and let me keep 1 of the child. In this situation, Mr. A, in this situation, how do you see the issue of surrogacy? Who is the real mother? Is it Mrs. Bosse or Mrs. Shadrach? Who is it, the surrogate mother or the person that donated the sperm and the ovary?
Of course, medically, it's Mrs.
Mrs. Shadrach donated the sperm and the ovary.
Of course, it's Mrs. Shadrach, because a child is a result of fertilization. That is the fusion of the egg from the woman and from the man, and that came from Mrs. Shadrach. So, but we should not be negligent of the fact that the woman who the surrogate mother also has a part in the child, because we all know that during formation of a child there is the formation of placenta, where there's a blood, and that's one of the things that will be conducted before a surrogate mother is allowed, because there will be a contact between the blood of the mother, an exchange between the blood of the mother and that of the child. And so therefore we are not negligent of the fact that the woman, the surrogate mother, also had a part in it. But we can't say the woman, the surrogate mother, is the mother, because when you are looking at blood transfusion, there's exchange of blood also, but you can't say the owner is, after there's exchange, you can't say the owner. But I believe that since it's a contract, it should be given to, legally, it should be given to the surrogate mother.
Now this is the situation that happened now that threw up a dilemma. The contract was originally for one child. Now she has a twin and she's only willing to release one. And the surrogate parents are claiming that we are the owner of this child. And she said, you signed contract for one kid. How do we handle this?
The contract should, if it's not part of the contract, then she can claim the child, but medically the woman has the child, because no matter what, it is the fusion, and both child will carry the gene
of Mr. and Mrs. Shedra.
Yes. And so she's originally, so you can't find the DNA tomorrow and you find the gene of
Mrs. Bossett. Yes.
Mrs. Bossett, yes.
But then in a situation, is it even medically safe at the point of this surrogacy or stuff like that? Do we have, is there no possibility that diseases are being transferred from the surrogate mother to the baby, since there is influx of blood transfusion?
Well, there is, but I think that would normally have been taken care of during the process before the surrogacy. That must have been taken care of medically.
Okay. These are the dilemmas we face, and at some point, another dilemma within it is the social stigmatization. When you now see that this person is your mother, but this person was the one that carries your pregnancy, how does the child feel within the society? How does the child feel? So that is that on surrogacy. Thank you, Mr. A, for being a part of our class.
You are welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay. So guys, that's that. I believe is much more interesting when we have two persons talking. I'll just discuss the last two ethical moral dilemma that we have. We have the issue of terrorism and war. Terrorism and war. I don't know if any of you have watched this movie, Black November. If you've watched this movie, Black November, then you'll be able to understand terrorism and war to some reasonable extent. Because you tend to look at it that the terrorists in Black November are claiming that their land and their community was being vandalized and they are neglected while their people are dying. And so one way or the other they became terrorists. In a situation like that, when people become anti-government person and goes against the government of the day based on the evil the government has done to them, can we consider their action to be morally right? Can we consider their action to be morally justified? Like one of the legal philosophers we say, Radbrook by name, he said, unjust law ought not to be obeyed. Unjust law ought not to be obeyed. When a government decide to kill some families unjustly and they decided later on to form a revolt or a rebel group, should those actions be condemned? Now this is the issue. Remember, when they are forming a rebel group or what we tag a terrorist group, those that will be inflicted that will be harmed by their action are not only the government but even innocent individuals. Should we still consider this as morally right? So put yourself in the situation of the movie Black November. Put yourself in the situation of that movie and put yourself at the receiving end of it. How do you justify this? Another ethical dilemma is what we call the global warming or burning of waste, the taking care of our environment and the rest. But someone will think, should we take care of the environment for a government who is not responsible to us? I'll be giving the situation of some state whereby they will tell you that you shouldn't drop refuse on the road and everything. But within it, they are not providing where people can drop their refuse on the street at every point or corner on the street. Yet they do not want people to drop refuse on the road, but they are not providing where people can drop refuse on the street. And then even when they say they are providing, one way or the other, the government still take some amount of money, like the Waste Management Authority take some amount of money to help people dispose their refuse. Is it morally right to pay for disposal of refuse to a government who does not really care about you? Those are ethical dilemma. You know, we talk about philosophy this with justice. Is it just to obey a government who is not morally responsible to you? To what extent should we obey this? So those are issues of terrorism, those are issues of war, those are issues of global warming. And with that, you can pop it up with your, by reading your textbook. I'll be drawing the curtain to a close right now. And I believe you enjoyed the section of ethical dilemma. We have just 3 more classes for the semester, and we'll meet again in the next video. Once again, do well to watch all the videos. Do well to subscribe. If you have any question, you can always contact me on our group. I've released my number. You can always contact me. And if you miss any of those classes, there are recorded videos for you. You can always get that. I remain your tutor, Oluwatobi David Eson. Do have a great day ahead.